Hi, young coders, it's Anna, and for today, we'll be studying about JavaScript, more specifically, event handling. And we will be doing that with a stop dance game to demonstrate the different things with regards to event handling. And we'll be learning how to add event listeners, how to play music with event handling, how to add animation to our elements with event handling. And before we begin, why don't you go down there and subscribe to our channel and like this video. And we do hope that you enjoy and learn something from this tutorial. So let's start. Okay, let's get into it. Let's go to our desktop and let's create a new folder by right-clicking and clicking New Folder. And let's name it Stop Dance Game. All right. And if to those of you who are not familiar with this game, it's when you're gonna play some music and then someone will stop the music, and when the music stops, you're gonna stop too. So that's what the stop dance game is, and whoever is still dancing when the music is stopped, then they are out of the game. So we're gonna create like a web page that can help when we're playing this game. And we're also going to be needing Visual Studio Code in our machines. And if you don't have it installed in your computer, just go ahead to the link below in our description below. We have the download link for Visual Studio Code, and you can pause this video for a second and download Visual Studio Code, then go back to this video to when you've downloaded it. Okay, because this will be the code editor that we'll be using. So let's go ahead and open Visual Studio Code. And we're going to open the folder that we created in this Visual Studio Code. So click File in the top left corner, and let's open Folder. Click that. And let's go and open the folder that we created, the Stop Dance Game, select Folder, and that should be opening now. There we go. And we're going to be creating this web page with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but we're mainly going to focus more on the JavaScript part because we are really getting into learning more about event handling. So let me just quickly create a new file called index.html. So click this to create a new file in our folder, or you can even just right-click here and click New File to create this folder, this file. And let's close up Welcome right here because we're not going to be needing that anymore. And let's type up HTML and select 5 right here. And this is the boilerplate when starting out an HTML document. So let's actually just remove these lines on line 4 and 5 because we don't need it for now. And as you can see, this is the typical elements or when you're starting out an HTML page. So we have the HTML tag, the head, the title of the document, which is we're going to rename that to Stop Dance Game. And this is the one that shows up in the tab when we open up in our browser. And we have the body. And in our body, let's go ahead and create an audio element first. And let's give it an ID of my audio. And we're going to get it from a source, and let's keep it blank for now, and let's close that up. And essentially, we're giving this a unique ID so we can call it later in our JavaScript. And for the source, actually, you can choose any music that you want. So for now, I want to put in this dance music MP3 and really put it into this Stop Dance Game folder. So there it is. This is the music that I want to play whenever we are playing Stop Dance. So let's just take a listen for a while. There we go. And let's close that up. And that would be our source, the source of our dance music. So let's go ahead and just put that in the source, the file name. There we go. And next, after that audio element, I want to put in some buttons. So put in button, and we're going to give this button an ID of dance button. There we go. And this button will say, let's dance. All right. And I also want another button down here, and I'll give this an ID of stop music button. There we go. And this will say stop music. All right. So we're just forming our web page structure right now, and just so we can get into our JavaScript as soon as we can, so I can explain our concepts. And next, we're going to put in a div. And in this div, we will be showing our dance moves. So let's put in an H2. Let's give it that an ID of dance moves. There we go. And let's keep it blank because we're going to be accessing this with DOM manipulation later in our JavaScript. So we can add in our dance moves in this. All right. And then let's put in an H3 right here. And let's put in some instructions so the player can use their computer keyboard to set their dance moves. So use your computer keyboard to set your dance moves. There we go. And after that, we're still inside the div. We're going to create an unordered list or a UL. And in this, we're going to put in the different dance moves and the correlating keys to trigger those dance moves. So first, I want a spin dance move. And I'm going to set it for the W key. And we're actually going to put the W inside a span. So let me just write W here instead of outside the span. And we're going to give this span a class of key. And yeah. So this, we're going to be styling that later on in our CSS. That's why we're setting its class to key. And just a quick recap of what class is. A class is like a name or identifier for this certain element so that we can access it in our CSS or in our JavaScript. And an element can have multiple classes and a class can be assigned to multiple elements. All right, so let me just copy this one right here and paste it a few times. 6 times. And I'm just gonna change the dance moves for each one. So let's say this is moonwalk. You can actually just put your own dance moves that you want for your game. And let's say robot. So they're gonna do the robot. And another one is the shuffle. And this would be for the letter D. And they all have the same classes, which is key. And we also want a freestyle dance move where they can dance freely however they want, and this would be for any key. There we go. And finally, we have another key to stop the music. All right, so that would be for the letter Q. Okay, so we have WASD, any key, and the letter Q. And next, that's all we need for the HTML for now. And let's go ahead and I think I want to open this in our browser right now. So we actually want to open this with a live server. So if you don't have live server in your VS Code, go ahead to this extensions tab right here. And let's search up live server. And the first thing that pops up should be the one. So just click the first one and just install this in your VS Code. And I already have it installed in my VS Code, so I don't need to install it again. But after you do install it, a go live in this bottom right corner will show up. Right here, this one, I mean. And let's just close this extension up. That means we can now go to our index.html, go back to our Explorer. I think we can close this one. And let's click this go live. All right, and it will say it's starting. And live server is essentially creating a live preview of your code. So when you make changes, it's you can see the changes in real time. So here it is. So here is my web page right now. As you can see, it doesn't look really, jazzy or really exciting to make us dance. So we're going to style it a little bit just so, it's more enticing to look at. So let me just actually put this in the side. So it's side to side. And let's open up our Explorer. And let's create a new file by right-clicking new file. And let's put in a styles.css. And here is where we're going to style our web page, make it look better. So first, we're going to modify our body. So let's select our body and open up some curly braces. And inside the curly braces would be the changes that we want to make in our body. So first, I want to change the font family to Verdana. Yeah, there we go. Verdana, Geneva. You can set it to any font family you want, but for me, I like this one. And actually, let's close up this Explorer just so we can see more. And I'm going to do the Alt-Z shortcut just so it word wraps and doesn't go off the page. We can see everything in just this window right here. And don't forget about your semicolon when after you've done your style, all right? And I want this to have a display of flex. All right, so it adjusts accordingly and flexes according to the display. And let's also align the items for inside the body. Align items to be the center. There we go. And we also want to justify the content to center. So everything shows up in the center. Okay. And actually, you're not seeing any changes right now in our HTML, and there should be some changes like the font family. And that is because we really still haven't connected our CSS, our external CSS to our HTML file. So let's just go ahead and go into this head element, and let's type in a link tag, and the rel would be a style sheet, and the source, or I mean the href, would be the name of our CSS file, which is styles.css. There we go. And just close that off. All right, and now as you can see, our code has changed. And now the font has changed, and the display and the alignment of the items is now, they are now actually in the center. It may not look like it because it's just half of the page, but if I zoom, if I open that up in a like full screen, you will see it's actually in the center. So let me just put that off to the side again. And I want to set the height for our body to be 100%. And the margin would be 10% all around. So there's some space. There you go. As you can see, there's some space between the border or the sides of the window and the actual content. And I also want to set the background image of this so it looks a little bit colorful. And for this background image, we're going to actually use linear gradient. And we're going to set this linear gradient to 2 colors. So first, that would be hashtag 611577. And this is a purplish tone. And yeah, and we also need another color if we want to linear gradient. And for this color, we're just going to use the hex code 1FOF3381. There we go. And now you can see it's linear gradient. But I actually don't want this from top to bottom. So I'm going to set that to right and comma. And you will see it will now go from left to right. There we go. And this right here, these numbers and letters is just representing a color. And the various colors that we can choose from, these are called hex codes. And because the background is a bit dark, I want to lighten up my text inside the body. And let's set the color of the text to just white. So there is a nice contrast between the text and the background color. All right, now that we got our body correct, let's look at our buttons right here. It's looking a bit lacking, you know, it doesn't look very enticing to dance. So let's go ahead and select the buttons and let us change the padding. Let's add a padding to that by 10 pixels. So it will have 10 pixels around it. So it's not as close to the border from the text. And after that padding, let's change the font size to a little bit bigger. Let's change it to 20 pixels. So it's easier to click and easier to see and read. And let's also add a margin, which is 0 and 10 pixels. So what does this 0 and 10 pixels mean? It just means that 0 is for the top and bottom, while the 10 pixels would be for the left and right. So it's not squished together, as you can see. And next, let's also add a cursor. Because when we hover over this, this buttons right here, our cursor is not changing. And I actually wanted to change to a pointer, just, you know, for more user experience. You know, it's easier to use and recognize that it can be clicked. So there we go. Now that we send it to pointer, when we hover over that button, it is now changing to a pointer cursor. And after that, let's also change the background color of these buttons to another hex code, which is CO46CB. There we go. So it's a little bit pinkish. And we also want to change the color of this to white. All right, there we go. Now it looks cohesive with this text right here. And we're going to add a border to this one. Or actually, we're going to remove the border. So let's put in none to remove the border around it. There we go. It looks neater, in my opinion. And let's actually smoothen those borders because it looks too sharp to me. So let's set the border radius to 5 pixels. And you'll see the borders or the corners of these buttons are now softer. And finally, let's add an outline of none. So we're not putting any outline to this button right here. There we go. I think that's all we need to change for this button. And now I want this button to actually do something when I'm hovering over it, because it doesn't really look intuitive that you can click this button. So let's select the button again and use a colon right here to access hover. There we go. So we can change what happens to the button whenever we hover our cursor over this button. So let's just simply change the background color to something lighter, which is hashtag FF5C8D. There we go. I think it's a little bit pinkish. So look at that. It's now better to press and, you know, it's more fun. Yeah. And now that we've edited that button, I actually want to edit too these this unordered list that we have because it looks a bit, it doesn't look as nice that I wanted to. So let's go ahead and select unordered list. And let's actually remove these bullet points right here. We don't need those. So let's set the list style to none. And it should go away. There we go. And after that, I also want to set the list items and add a padding on the bottom for each of these entries, just so they're not as close together. So the padding I'll be adding is about 20 pixels. There we go, plenty of space. And we're also going to set the font size to something a little bit bigger, which is 20 pixels. There we go. And next, I also want, let's go back to our HTML just so I can show you. Let's click Alt-Z. And we set the span right here, right? And we set the class to key. So let's go ahead and select that class key. And how do you select classes on CSS? And that would be a period. And then the name of our class, which is key. And open up some curly brace. And first, I want to change the font weight or to, oh, I'm sorry. Font weight. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Wait. There we go. To bold, just so it's a little thicker. And I want to also add a background, actually, before the padding. A background color of hashtag EAEAEA. There we go. It's just a grayish color. And we're also going to change the color of the text to just copy this one, this dark color right here. Or maybe I want this one, actually. This purpley color. Select that, copy that, and paste it right here with a hashtag. Just so it looks a bit more cohesive too. And I also want to add a padding because I want some negative space or white space around the text. So let's add a padding of 7 pixels. And semicolon. Okay. Now I also want to add a border for this. And let's just set the border to solid. 2 pixels. So it means the border is a solid border. And it is 2 pixels thick. And the colors, I think, would just be black. There we go. And it should show up right here. There we go. And I also want to all right. Now we're gonna also taper off the corners of the border because it's also too sharp for my liking. So let's go ahead and add a border radius of 10 pixels. I think that should be enough. Oh, and actually I want to align the text to the center because it doesn't look like it's centered. And there we go. It looks a bit better. And that's all we need for this keys right here. And I think that's all we want to do with this with our CSS. And now we can go ahead and go to JavaScript now. We can get into learning about event handling now. So let's open up our Explorer and let's create a new file named script.js. All right. So I actually want to maximize this because we're going to be focusing more on the code and we're actually not going to see much visuals, but like how it works. Okay, so first of all, before we go into our JavaScript, let's go ahead to our HTML. Let's go back and let's go here in the before the body closes or the body element closes, let's enter in a script tag. And inside the script, let's add in a source. And that would be the name of our file or our JavaScript file, which is, which is script.js. There we go. All right. And this should now work when we make some functionalities in our script. It is now connected to our HTML. Okay, so let's go ahead to our script. And I actually want to close up my Explorer right here. All right. So first, what we want to learn is how to add event listeners to a button. Okay, so since we're talking about event handling, we are going to be using event listeners. So what are event listeners in JavaScript? So event listeners are when we tell our code or JavaScript, we're saying, hey, wait for this event to happen and then do something when it does happen. So for example, wait for the user to click this, and then when they do click this, do this. You're essentially saying JavaScript that when you're adding an event listener to something. And we want to add an event listener to our dance button right here. So what we do is get this dance button into our JavaScript with DOM manipulation, which is document object model manipulation. And how do we get that button? So first, let's create a constant variable of dance button. There we go. And we can get that by referring to the document dot, and we're going to get the element by ID. Okay? Because if we remember, there is actually an ID to our dance button, and the ID is actually dance button too. So let's just go ahead and get the element by ID, and in here will be the ID name we're looking for. All right, and don't forget about your semicolon when you're dealing with JavaScript. Now we have our dance button in our JavaScript. And next, we're also going to now we're going to add an event listener to this dance button. So let's go ahead and type in dance button dot add event listener. There we go. And just press tab so we can quickly select that option and open up some parentheses so we can enter in our arguments. And actually, this is a function, and it enters into arguments or parameters, which is the event we are waiting for or we are listening for, and the function it's JavaScript will do once that button is clicked. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we're waiting for a click, right? Because we're actually waiting for a click for this dance button. So once the user clicks the dance button, this will be triggered. And what do we want to do when we click the dance button? We want to trigger a function, and we're just going to create this function right in here, and with the function keyword, and then some open close parentheses and some curly braces. So this is what we actually call an anonymous function, because this function doesn't have a name, because it can directly be called into event listeners like this. So we actually don't need a name for it. And functions are just blocks of code that can be reused or run a couple of times, so you don't have to, type it all out again and again and again. And for this one, let's just test if this event listener is working and our button is working. So let's just go ahead and type in console.log, and we want to log in let's dance. There we go, let's dance. And this console.log is kind of a log that we're putting into our console. This is mostly for developers and for us, the programmers, to see any errors or any logs that we want to see if this is successful, and this will not be seen by the user themselves. And since I also have I have autosave ticked here, so you can also click in your file right here and click autosave, so you don't have to Control S every time you make changes. It automatically saves. So let's just go ahead to our stop dance game right here, and let's right click and open up inspect element right there. And it should open in the right part of your screen, and click on console at the top. There we go. So this we will see in here all the logs that will be showing. So let me close that up. There we go. This should be the one you're seeing actually. So let's click the let's dance button. Okay, it's not showing up. Nothing is showing up. And why is that? So let's go back. And I think because I'm missing a semicolon right here. So let's go back again. And this should refresh on its own, because this is again a live preview by live server. And let's just click let's dance. There we go. Now it's working. It's showing up let's dance when you click this button. Now I'm going to teach you how to play some audio using event handling. So let's go back here, and after getting this dance button, we also want to get the audio element that we set in our HTML. So let's put in a constant variable again, and this would be named audio. And just also get the document, because let's go back to our HTML, and we actually have this element my audio right here, and that's what we're going to be getting. So let's go back to our script and select the document and get element again by ID, and the ID would be my audio, which is what we set. And don't forget again the semicolon. There we go. And what we want to do is actually play this audio once we click that dance button right there. So let's go ahead and just select the audio, or call the audio, and type dot and play. Now when we go back to our stop dance game, when we click let's dance, it's playing the music that we set. Okay, right. So now we want to stop this music. Let me just refresh that again for a while so the music stops. And we want, when we click let's dance, it plays the music, but we have no way of stopping the music actually. So what we want to do right now is create another function, but we're going to create it outside of this dance button now, because we're actually going to set it for this stop music button right here. So let's go ahead and create a const, again, variable. I think I want it right here too. A constant variable, and that would be the stop button. And we're also going to get a document, our document, and get an element by ID. There we go. And the element we're getting is the stop music button. All right. Now we want to add an event listener to this stop button. So let's go ahead and select our stop button and add an event listener similar to what we did for the dance button. And for this one, we're also waiting for a click. We're waiting for the click event to happen. And we're going to run a function. But instead of actually putting it also right here, I want to put it in another function outside of it, because we're going to use callback on this function. So let's just leave it blank for now. And let's put the semicolon right here, because first we're going to create a function. So let's create a function keyword. And this would be named pause sound. And open and close parentheses and some curly braces. Why are we not directly creating a function, an anonymous function in this event listener? It's because we're actually going to use this pause sound again in another event listener, so we can call it easily later on. All right. And now we want our audio to pause. There we go. So we can pause the sound, and there we go. I think that's all we need to pause the sound. It's that easy to play and pause the music. So what we're essentially doing is calling back to the function, or calling the function in this function right here. So it's like a function inside a function. And let's call it pause sound. And we don't need to actually put the parentheses in here, because it works even without those. And let's play the music. And when I click stop music, it should stop. Or there we go. It paused the music. It doesn't actually stop the music, because when I click let's dance again, it's gonna play from where it left off. There we go. Let's dance. Pause. Let's dance. It doesn't restart from the beginning. And that's exactly what we want for the stop dance game, because of course you don't want to reset the music every time you stop it. All right. You want it to continue. So actually, I want to show up a let's dance, not in the console, but in our actual web page, just so the player knows that we can dance now. So I want to get the, let's go back to our HTML. I want to get this dance moves heading 2, so we can put in some text in this. So let's select that by creating constant again. And let's just name this dance moves equals document. Oh, I'm sorry. Document. Can't type properly. Document dot get element by ID, and the ID would be the same. Okay, dance moves. There we go. And oh, I forgot semicolon for here and here too. Now, what we actually want to do with this dance moves element right here is put in some text when we do some things. Like, for example, I want to put in some text into this heading 2. Let's just go to the HTML. This heading 2, I want to put in some text. Let's dance when we click the dance button. And how do we do that? Let's just go and put in moves. Oh, dance moves, I mean. And dot inner HTML. And it would be let's dance. So we're setting the text inside that H2 to be let's dance. Okay, so let's try that out for now. There we go. And let's click this one. It says object promise. Oh, there we go. Now it says let's dance. All right. And let's go back to our code. And I actually want this to be let's dance. And I actually also want to go back to my styles and style it a bit. Let's add it here. Let's say, let's get the ID, which is denoted by a hashtag, and then dance moves. We're getting the ID of dance moves. And we're just going to set the font size to something a little bit bigger. It's around 50 pixels, so that it's more pronounced and bigger. And let's see that in action. Wait, let's see that in action right here. It should refresh. Let's refresh it so it's faster. There we go. Now it's bigger. Let's stop the music and let's go back. And I also want it to show stop when I click stop. So let me just copy this right here and paste it in our pause sound next to the pause. And instead of let's dance, it should say stop. There we go. So let's go ahead and look at that in action. Refresh the page and let's dance and stop. There we go. And now I want to, now that we know about DOM manipulation with event handling, I also want to show you how event handling works when it comes to keys on the keyboard, because we've been doing clicks, right? And now I want to read some inputs from the keyboard when the user presses a key. So how do we do that? So we just select the whole document, okay, and add an event listener to it. And that event listener, if you can remember, the first thing we'll put into that event listener is the event we're waiting for. And the event we're waiting for is a key down when the user presses a key. And what do we do when the user presses a key? We run a function. There we go. And we also want to put in the parameter of the event, all right? Just event. So this event is actually reading the key that you pressed or the key down that you pressed. So for example, I pressed P, it's going to read that event and pass it into this function that we're putting in this event listener. And let's open up some curly braces. And first, we're gonna check which key was pressed. So let's create a constant variable called key, and let's get the event and figure out the key that it is pertaining to. All right. So now I want to see what key this is. So let's just console.log, and let's see what key is triggered. Okay. So let's go back to our web page right here and inspect our element, and go to console again. And let's just press down letter R. So does that show anything? Let's press R again. Or maybe let's just refresh the page. Okay, and press R. There we go. And the letter R is showing up in our console. What about H or A, S, T, F? Oh, A, S, W, D. Okay, so it's reading these letters that I'm typing. All right, now it's working. So let's go back. Now I want to remove actually this console.log because we don't actually need it. And I want to perform something, or I want to show some dance moves according to the keys that I'm pressing. And let's go back to the web page. And as you can see, it says we will spin when we press W, we'll moonwalk when we press A, robot when S, and so on. So let's just go ahead and use a switch statement. So switch statements are conditional statements wherein it takes a variable inside these parameters and checks or compares it to the cases it has in this switch. So for this one, we're checking the key, all right? And we're checking what case the key is. So I want the key, A key. So for case A, it's going to do the following. It's going to get the dance moves and change its inner HTML to, so we're changing the text to moonwalk, because A is for moonwalk, right? And after that case, now that we've changed the inner HTML, we can break out of this case. And we can proceed to doing the next case, which is the letter S. So let's just select that. And this one, let me just copy this right here actually, and paste it right here, and just change the few things. So S, and the dance move for S would be robot. And we're still gonna break. So for the next is the letter D. And for D, it would be the shuffle, right? And the next would be for W, and for W, it's the spin, all right? And we also have another one, which is the Q, right? And when we press Q, it's supposed to stop. And instead of just changing the inner HTML, we're going to call back to this function. We're going to pause the sound. That's why we put this one in a function, because we can call it back again in other scenarios. So let me copy this and paste it right here. And don't forget to open and close parentheses. We're calling the function to run when the key is pressed. And when we're dealing with switch cases, we also have to have a default. All right. So this default, it stands for if any of these cases is not triggered, it will go to the default. And for the default, it's just gonna do, let me copy this, the freestyle. Okay. So the dancers or the players can just freestyle if any key is pressed. All right. Now that we're done with that switch, let's go ahead and test it out for a few. Okay, so let me refresh. All right, so let's dance. Let's click this one. All right. Oh, let's press A. Moonwalk. Let's press double. All right, let's stop the music for a while. And I'm going to show you the other keys. So we have A, we have W, S, D. All right, and when we play again and press Q, so it stops. So it's working. And now that we know the event of key down event, we can also add another thing with this, so we can make it more stylish, and it's adding a bit of animation. So how to add a bit of animation? It's by changing the style of the moves with the key press. Okay, so when the user presses a key, it's going to perform an animation with the text dance moves. So let's just select the dance moves, which is the H2, and let's set the style. And let's set the transition, and the transform. The transition would be transform 0.5 seconds, ease in and out. So that when it the animation is happening, it's going, or the transformation or any animation we put into this, it's the animation will be smoother and it will ease in and out for about a half a second, so it looks smoother. And we're also gonna set the dance moves again and another style, and we're setting the transform for this one. Okay, and we're setting the transform to a scale of 1.2, so it pops out bigger. Okay, so let's check that out before we continue. All right, so it will refresh, and I will not play the music first, and let's just press A. There we go. So as you can see, it went bigger, but I also wanted to go back to its original size when after I press it. For about half a second, I wanted to go back to its original size. So now what we do is set a timeout. All right, and in the set timeout, we call in a function and open some curly braces. And in this set timeout, first we're gonna put in this function. This first argument would be what it will do. So what it will do is this function, and the function will dance moves. Oh, there we go. And set the style to transition, and it will go. Let's just copy this one, because we're also going to set this one as the transition when it goes back to its original original transition. Let me just look at this, why it's not working. Oh, it's function. There we go. And we're also going to return it back to its original transform, which is just of scale 1. So let me copy actually this one and paste it right here to make everything quicker. And instead of 1.2 scale, just 1 to its original scale. All right, so that is the first argument for this set timeout function. The next one would be how long before we perform this function right here. And this is set in milliseconds, so just 500 milliseconds is enough, which is about half a second. So let's put in a semicolon and let's try it out. Okay, let's dance. There we go. And when you want to stop, stop. And the player should stop now. And when we dance again, let's dance. And you can freestyle to freestyle. And shuffle. Oh, robot, shuffle. And let's stop. Okay, so that's how we make this stop dance game. And I hopefully through this we learned about event handling, how to add event listeners, how to play audio with event listeners, and how to read key presses, what keys we press on the keyboard, and play some audio, play some animation with event handling. So hopefully you learned more for today, and we hope to see you again in our next tutorial. Thank you guys.